Introduce. My name is Joyce Adumi. I'm the co-chair, and this is my co-chair.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Gross. Nice to see all of you again.
So I think it would be good if we just go around the room and we just introduce ourselves, who we are, starting with sir.
All right, my name is Joel Abreu. I'm representing the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone, which is a local community development financial institution. Maureen used to be here. I'm the,
Yes,
I don't know if you guys remember.
very much so. We did some work with her.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm the new business development officer.
Where's more?
He left to Houston,
Really?
to Texas.
To New York, got to this one.
For everyone, but yeah, he left.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Are you related to Sean?
No, I am
I'm
not.
sure you get that a lot.
I get that all the time. I used to be the chair of business development in CB12.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I used to get that all the time. Oh, really?
Yeah. Thanks. Well,
Hello, I'm Andrea Greco. I'm a member of this committee, and I'm also involved as a board member with Manhattan, Morningside Heights Community Coalition.
I wouldn't Whiting, here for, I've been to a few meetings in the past. So.
okay. Are you from Columbia?
I'm a student, yeah, a medical school there.
Medical school. Okay. Nice. Future doctor, huh? All right. Okay, Michael?
Hi everyone, I'm Michael. I'm a law school student. Also part of the Morningside Heights Community Coalition. Yeah, co-chair of this committee. Happy to see all of you.
So, as I said, my name is Joyce Adumi. I founded and run a nonprofit organization. I am also the president of the Third Precinct Community Council. And what else? That's all for now. This is enough. That's enough. Okay, so we have online, can you all hear us? If you can't, just nod. Oh, awesome, very good, very good. Okay, so because we don't have a quorum, we're just going to call the meeting to attention. Yeah. And then we cannot adopt the minutes, we cannot adopt any agenda, we'll just move straight to the presentation. And we have a presentation today by Robert Burke, the Executive Director at Hudson River Community Sailing. Michael, I'm sure you read some of what he wrote, sounds very interesting, so Robert, you have the mic, welcome. I didn't read it before. Robert, you wanna unmute?
Hi Robert, I think you're muted.
You're muted, Robert.
Apologies, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, so I apologize, I just sent you an email, but we had a little incident a few minutes ago here at Pier 66. So I'm just waiting for the park police. So I am not going to be able to present. I just tried to email you a couple minutes ago. If I could go later in the meeting, they're going to be here in a couple minutes, but we had a potential intruder and I'm just outside dealing with it right now. I hope to be back in the office in 5 minutes. If you can go with, if there's another presentation or others, I will join as soon as I can.
Absolutely, Robert, absolutely.
All right, so I will be back as soon as I can.
Okay, be safe.
All right, thank you.
Okay, all right, so we're moving on to a partnership with Columbia Law Students, Entrepreneurship and Community Development. Yes.
So this is a clinic that's been at Columbia for some time. It's run by this great professor, Professor Patton. What she does is she works with a ton of sort of emerging and small businesses throughout New York City that get referred to her clinic. She has sort of students that work on her behalf. The way this sort of partnership came about is we were talking a lot about how this community board used to work with the business school at Columbia to get students to work on sort of doing small business consulting to all of the sort of businesses in our districts. That was definitely something we want to bring back or want to bring back to some extent. Sort of tried reaching out to them, but this professor at the law school was very open to working with our community board. And I think the sort of immediate next steps are going to be to develop some kind of form, whether that's like a paper form that folks can mail or an online Google form, where businesses throughout the district can sort of make a direct request to the clinic to be a client for a number of potential different like legal services that those businesses might need. I think we're still sort of working on the range of services that the clinic can provide. But that's definitely something I'll have a little more information on in the next couple of weeks. But I think the idea as an immediate sort of thing, once we have the form together, is to be able to reach out to as many businesses as possible through both like the great listserv that Board 9 has, and also just potentially if you know any businesses that could use legal services or be helped by the clinic. Yeah, please just obviously let us know or let the business know that they can sort of fill out this form and get involved or request services. I think it also, as a next step, makes sense for us to have some kind of flyer that has like a code that people can scan so that they can fill out the form. But that's all stuff we're sort of trying to figure out. But I think overall the lift will be sort of easy because the clinic is already in place. It already has clients throughout New York. And now we're just sort of making this sort of direct relationship for it to get clients in our district.
I can ask the question. How, your thought about how broad the capability of the clinic is, I'm thinking probably the most common issues would have to do with immigration issues for employees or themselves, for an owner, and also financial, like maybe leases and rent. I mean, that it strikes me as among the top issues that they have. Like, would they clinic be able to handle that?
I think working on any kind of cases where someone's immigration status is in question is probably beyond the scope of what the clinic can do, and there are a ton of there's so many other services that specialize in that we probably wouldn't want to involve the clinic anyway, that are sort of better suited to deal with like documentation issues. I think financial things and like lease provisions and contracts and like all these kinds of different things that businesses have to sort of know the legal language of. I think that's where the clinic will hopefully be able to step in.
Would it be on a rolling admission or kind of like per cohort? I don't know if you know how they're structured these things.
Yeah, I mean it's this is the hard part because they are clinic, like they have students, and so the semester ends in May, right? And so they will just take, I think, clients on a rolling basis. I think the professor will probably have like discretion on what she thinks her students can handle or look into. I think something we want to talk to the professor about that I didn't get to talk to her about is some kind of referral program where she obviously has contacts with a bunch of other different legal services. And if there are situations where the business can't get help by the clinic, we want to make sure that professors at least, or the clinic itself is at least like, sending the application along somewhere, so that hopefully gets looked at. Yeah.
I think one thing that would help is, number one, it's great that they have been doing this for a while. I think one thing that would help is if on the flyer, you list some of the things that they can help with. So, people will know they need those services.
One additional comment that I want to make is one of the big things that businesses need help with as it pertains to UMass is getting the financials in order, right? With a P&L statement or a balance sheet or filing taxes and getting loan ready. And access to capital.
Yeah.
Is a big one as well. So
I think access to capital is definitely something that we've been looking at a lot in this community. There are a lot of folks who had like grants run out this year especially. And I think I'm hopeful that the clinic can help with that. I'm not sure how much they actually know about like getting like financing or knowing about the sort of like grant landscape in the city. But I'm hoping that's also something that we as a committee can help with, or Community Board 9 can help with generally. Yeah.
Well, this sounds good. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
No, Professor, I'm looking forward to, it looks like something that is going to actually work. Work out the kinks, whether it's on a rolling basis and whatnot. It'll be good for our community.
Yeah.
So thank you. Who's supposed to be in the West Harlem Piers committee?
It looks like Robert Burke might. So it looks like Robert Burke might be ready to present the sailing.
Presentation.
Yeah. Robert?
Yes, I'm back. I'm in. Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries. Do you have do you have access to your presentation or?
Yeah, unless you unless you want to project it from what I sent, otherwise I can grab it if you give me.
Yeah, you can grab it. That'd probably be easier. Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second here. Okay. So, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Yep. You're all good.
Okay. So thank you again for having us, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it up in person. This is our main headquarters down here at Pier 66, and just had a few things going on. And then shortly before this meeting, there was someone out back and went out to talk to him and called the police and wound up getting locked out. So I apologize. But appreciate you making the time. We met with the executive committee back in December. And at that point, they suggested we come to the Economic Development and West Harlem Piers to present. And so that's what we are doing. So Hudson River Community Sailing is very much hoping to come to Community Board 9. I heard somebody from Economic Development and Community Board 12. That's where we have been in our second location since 2018, and is closing. So I showed this video at I don't know if it'll play, we'll see how it plays, but so some of you who were at that meeting saw it, but this will give you a little taste of what we do. Uh-oh, it might not work here. This is, I don't know if you have the audio, is it playing?
I think if you unmute it, it should work. So if you unmute it on your end, it should work.
Okay. Sorry, where is it muted?
So just to the right there. By the settings.
Sorry,
So
I think I'm covered.
You'll see the megaphone. So if you could go up to the video.
Yeah.
Video. You can just hit unmute right there at the top.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Time access. HRCS's mission is to develop leadership and academic success in New York City's young people. And we do that as part of a larger community sailing center.
We're both interested in sailing education, but also in helping people make sailing a part of their lives.
HRCS's after-school program, Sail Academy, takes students and it teaches them how to sail, but it also teaches them a lot of other skills that are really important regardless of what they do later in life.
We use math and science in a practical sense. So we not only learn how to do algebra or trigonometry, we learn how they relate to sailing. We actually use those skills to determine where we're going to sail and how we're going to use the wind so that it feels more real to the student.
Being in this program is a lot different than just being in class. It's a lot more hands-on.
It's opened me up to new ways to view things and how to solve different problems.
It's about inquiry. And it's about, taking a hypothesis and going out each day and seeing if that exists on the water.
The program is just so amazing because they start freshman year and they end senior year. However, 2 of my students that graduated 4 years ago are here right now, and they're seniors in college, and they're still with the sailing program. So, I mean, I think it's something that you love for life.
There would be a lot of difference in my life without HSCS. I wouldn't be as much of a leader. I wouldn't be as confident as I am right now. And I wouldn't know anything about sailing, which is a sad thing.
Oh, man, I've grown a lot as a person. I have done so many things to step out of my comfort zone. I've learned just to step out of that little box and all that shelter and just taking that with me into everything.
Being part of HRCS's 10th year is really exciting. I'm both really proud of where we've come in my time here and in the 10 years that we've been around, but also really excited to see what we keep doing over the next 10 years and beyond.
The sky is really the limit for Hudson River community sailing. In the next 10 years, there's so much we can accomplish, and there's so much yet to accomplish, not only in the world of sailing, but in the world of education, hands-on experiential education. And we're really at the cutting edge of that, and we're looking forward to pushing that edge even further.
We have this very vibrant, active community sailing center that does racing, has youth camps, works with youth groups and scouts and adults and members and veterans. And so it's a very lively place, but at the very center of it, at the heart of it, is a youth development program that works with 9 public high schools, about 150 students over the 4 years of their high school career.
The sailing school
Whoop.
that exists in an urban environment.
Sorry. Let me just get up here. So that was 7 years ago. So things have grown since then. I'm trying to get to my next slide here. Bear with me. I was not expecting. Why did I get next slide? I apologize, folks.
No, don't worry.
I feel like we use a lot of Google Meet, and I'm not as familiar with Zoom. So I guess it took me to the video. Let me go back to the slideshow.
There you go.
Okay, so since that was 6 years ago, you can tell we were a lot younger. I just thought the visuals would be helpful for the committee to kind of see what we do. We went up to Inwood after that, and we created a program up there. So now we have 250 students with 5 schools up there. And last year, we lost our Dykeman Marina, and it's made it really, really challenging for us. The other program that we did up there almost exclusively was adaptive sailing. So sailing with people with disabilities. If you go to our website, you'll see videos of folks, a big contingent from the Bronx VA and the Manhattan VA, but non-veterans as well. And we were doing that at a Dykeman Marina. But as the video kind of showed you, it's this youth development and this adaptive sailing is in a larger sailing center. So we have a lot of members. We have a summer program for just any youth that can sign up that aren't in the 14 partner schools. And we just do lessons and that kind of thing, trying to make sailing a little different than what people understand it to be, and not a place just of privilege, but a place for everybody to get on the water. And we have members who are in their 80s, and we have members who are in their teens. So, and we're looking for another place, and we think West Harlem is a good fit, and we think we'd be a good fit for West Harlem in terms of economic development, in terms of education. So we've been working on the Hudson. As I said, that video was 7 years ago. We're in our 18th year. We have a lot of track record of running safe programs and introducing thousands of New Yorkers. We've always worked with public schools. We think public schools is the opportunity for making change. And so, in fact, some of those students that were young teenagers that you saw in the video, Dawn and Dario now works for Meta, and Dawn is a math teacher for a foster care agency and doing really great things in the world. So, but that's where we really focus on. But we do a real broad variety of programs. We are a $3 million budget. $1 million of that was happening out of the Dyckman Marina. And we're hoping that we can bring this to West Harlem Piers. This is just it's the youth program is year round. As you saw, there's students who are building things. There's a big robotics program. There's a natural history and environmental science program, and the students get credit. We already work with the KIPP school in the CB9. The other schools from Inwood are up in CB12 or in the Bronx. And then down here in Chelsea, we have 9 partner schools, but you can see the names of the schools there. And a little bit of the outcomes of Sail Academy. There's a real emphasis on job training. So all of our students, as they get into their upper years, get opportunities for internships here, get to put money in their pocket as they go off to college. And I think that's another thing we'll bring to the neighborhood is jobs for young people. So come May, we'll have 18 to 20 of our students who are on payroll, through the summer, making good wages to help us support this larger program. Then as I said, we have these other programs, community programs. A lot of them bring big events. So for instance, we held the Architects Regatta up at Dyckman Marina, bringing 150 architects, for big events. And, after, when architects come out to sail for a big fundraising event, so they do the fundraising, it's for the waterfront, but they like to go to the local restaurants and use the spaces. And again, I think that's why we'd be a great fit. As I said, the one program that we haven't been able to refit down here in Chelsea is our adaptive program, particularly with people who use wheelchairs. The waters are just not appropriate down here in Chelsea. And again, another good reason, another good fit for 125th Street. We think there's a really underutilized, waterfront there. Not that the piers aren't utilized. I know people love the piers and they love sitting there and using the parkland, but there's a place where that meets the water. And we think we'd be a really good fit with Baylander and Harlem Rocket, which is part of how we came in. So just a little bit, when we met in December, and the presentation I sent is just a little bit of an update. We had begun to do the outreach. We went to your executive committee. We continue to talk with Harlem Rocket. The real linchpin here is EDC and the ability to get floating docks on the water. Initial talks with EDC in December when I came to you all felt like they thought they were going to move really quickly on this. I think things have slowed down a bit. Where we are at now, to give you an update, is they sent us to do our own. So those boats you saw are called keel boats. They would stay on moorings. So they would get anchored off the piers. There wouldn't be dock space available. And EDC, so one of the steps is that HRCS has now begun the process of applying for moorings, which happens through Army Corps and DEC. So we were hoping that it was going to be a little bit more, a little easier, but that is one step in the process. Again, there's still no docks. If you can see this space, Harlem Rocket has a dock approved. If you can see my cursor on this side, and I have some other slides that show it. And EDC was hoping that we might be able to work on and around their dock. But for us to do anything, we'd have to have an additional dock space either in here or out over here. So that's kind of what we're working on, but we've been talking, to all the groups in the neighborhood. The group we hadn't talked to when we spoke with you last time was Columbia. Columbia is also very supportive. And I have been talking with them. One of the things that we would need, as you saw, that students are there after school every day around the year. You can't do all that out on the docks and on the water, is some kind of a space upland where we would meet for our after school program. So here's would originally back in December talked to EDC about extending a floating dock in this direction. Of course, we've been in touch with the Baylander folks, and then Harlem Rockets dock is scheduled to go in over here. Their dock is what's called a non-spudded dock. It's a temporary dock where it's just going to be kind of lashed to these pilings over here. That type of dock is not particularly, it's probably not stable enough for us to work with people with disabilities, but we might be able to share some space with Harlem Rocket, and we continue to talk. I just pointed out some of the economic developments. This is the Economic Development Committee, so I want to be clear, but I think some of these large events, bringing our members, from downtown, bringing corporate groups, for us our $3 million budget is about 50% fee for service and 50% philanthropic. Obviously we're a 501c3. We rely on, mostly on philanthropic, but we also do a lot of events. And I think that could be good as we're developing this west side. Again, we already have some relationships with schools. We'd be able to bring in more schools if we get set there. So that was the presentation, and maybe I will blow you all up here so I can see your faces if you're asking questions.
Yeah. I have questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Andrea?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about the rocky start, everybody, on the audio. It's been one of those days. I'm sure you've been there, but I appreciate you hearing us out. And I guess I would ask you, like, what thoughts you have on how, we should proceed. I think for us, keeping EDC interested on it and keeping moving in that direction is the highest priority. And I don't know if you have any suggestions or thoughts in that area.
You actually have a question, Robert.
Okay,
Some people have questions for you.
great.
Yeah.
Robert, I think it's very exciting, and I hope it all continues to move ahead. But my question is, what are the biggest barriers to moving forward? And it's a different question, but how are students selected? What's the criteria?
That's a great question. So I think that, the waterfront's a difficult place. It's difficult from a regulatory stance. We just started the application for the moorings, but we still don't have a dock out there. And getting a dock permitted, paid for, and operating. So the way it works is EDC manages the site. A group called Dock NYC manages the docks. They've been very receptive, and in fact, EDC was, very initially really got things kind of moving. It's just there can be a lot of inertia on the waterfront. I know Harlem Rocket's been working on it for a couple of years. So I think the biggest barrier for us is having that waterfront access. This year we're probably not going to have our own dock, and maybe we're hoping to do some events with Harlem Rocket. We can't bring our, Bronx VA there and say we're going to do adaptive sailing, on with people with wheelchairs, because it's not certain enough for that, but hoping to do a couple events with the neighborhood. And then next year, really getting a dock in, but that's the biggest hurdle. As far as how students are selected, we try to pick our schools, that schools that are going to work with us and that we're going to, enhance what they're doing. And so, but we really, we let the schools sort of help recruit the students. So some schools, are recruiting students who might be struggling. Other schools are using it more as an opportunity to bring certain, kids into the experience. So we had worked with Hamilton Grange in that neighborhood. They sort of did it one way. KIPP did it another way. up in the Inwood programs was middle school focused. We're down here in Chelsea, we're very high school focused. And so the students really self-select to be involved in the programs. It's a pretty long walk from the high schools to our facility here in Chelsea. So we'll have to see as this develops what other school partnerships we create. We do think those school partnerships are really important to the way our theory of change in terms of who we want to work with, bring to the water, and make feel really comfortable and leaders on the water. So
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, what's the rightmost docks availability?
could you say that again? I heard something about the docks.
The dock on the right, what is, do you need to build a new dock or is that dock?
Yeah, so all that's there now are piers. So we need to build a floating dock that, call them floats, and a gangway. So Harlem Rocket, and I can pull back up, but I did so bad on the visual the first time, I'm scared. But Harlem Rocket has an approved dock, basically on the east side of that south pier, sort of across from the Baylander. And we were looking at, we'd have to build a new float and a gangway, the platform that goes down to the dock that has to go up and down with the tides. We have about a 5-foot tide in this part of the sea, really, because we're a finger of the ocean here, but this part of the Hudson. So it's not insignificant infrastructure, but it's not hard, So we've been talking to, since we talked last, we've talked to an engineering company called Langen, does a lot of stuff on the waterfront. Ultimately, we think it'd be best for EDC and the city to, put the docks in, not just have HRCS be a user, but have other users, but that's still to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up, just regarding the Baylander being there, are there any problems that you anticipate with where the Baylander is sort of docked with regard to where you want to build, or will there be any issues with the Baylander sort of specifically regarding construction by EDC or the work on this by EDC?
I don't think so. Baylander has an agreement with Dock NYC. It's an annual agreement, and then they use that. There's next to Baylander is this barge that Dock NYC owns. So I think everybody wants to work together down there. We went early to meet with Baylander and said, hey, what do you think? They were very supportive. So I think there's plenty of dock space for all of us. And additionally, there's the one part, we want to get in there, we want to do this program, but I also think we really want to work with the community on how do we create dock space there to even bring in other, programs and groups, whether it's Billion Oyster Project coming in or kayaking groups and things like that. So more like we want to get in there, we want to get moving, but we also want to help with a sort of master plan. My whole career has been involved in getting young people, particularly young people from New York City, into, activities, adventure, outdoors, those kinds of really positive opportunities. So that's who I'm most interested in. But I think there's a lot of, space there that could get other people on the water without impeding, all the nice piers and stuff that are there now.
Totally. Can you also just say a little bit about sources of funding? You
Sure.
mentioned conversation with Columbia.
Yeah.
Is there a comprehensive sort of list of folks that are helping make this happen?
Working on it, but our funded, like I said, we're about half and half philanthropic and fee for service as a 501c3. We're pretty diverse. We get money from the VA for our one grant. We get money from DYCD. We get money from private foundations for Sail Academy, that kind of thing. So we're involved in philanthropic. So there isn't a direct ask yet because EDC isn't clear on who would purchase the dock or how that exactly. So they're still talking a little bit there. As far as a build out of space. I think that's where, maybe Columbia could be helpful, Upland. They do have a lot of spaces, whether we could lease a space at for a nonprofit rate to make, for that after school space. So that's one of the things that I've brought up, with Columbia, and, they're open to hearing ideas and looking at it. So it's still kind of early, in terms of, because we don't have a doc, it's hard to say when we're going to have a program, but that's who's moving it along. I think, getting the city to invest there at least at some level. I know what's going in now, I don't know exactly all the arrangements between Harlem, Rocket, and Dock NYC, but there's some of that infrastructure that Dock NYC will own. Dock NYC is run by New York City, New York Waterway, so the ferry service. So it's a little complicated, but they have a lot of experience, and they're going to have barges and cranes over there. This year working on that barge that Baylander ties up to. This summer, I'm sure you've heard some of it, but with this 250th anniversary, there's going to be there's going to be a tall ship from Dominican Republic, is my understanding, tied up to the outside of the piers, and some other things like that. Dock NYC handles all that. So, the question was, how do we pay and where do we pay from? It could be, some additional groups kind of coming together, but still working that out. Again, it's not super complicated. We need like 5 or 6. So we need about 5 or 6 of these big pilings, but they already exist at Dyckman. So with the closure of Dyckman, and one of the things that moved this along quickly in December and then stalled was Parks Department gave Dock NYC the docks, the floating docks from Dyckman, and said, here, go take these and use them at 125th Street if you want. And HRCS was still trying to get them not to close Dyckman. We were like, oh, wait, don't close Dyckman until you have a contract and all that in place. And, so we were kind of in this funny situation. We're like, but if you have docks, bring them to 125th Street because we'll use them. So there are docks that Dock NYC already has from the New York City Parks Department that were in fine shape that are just going to get destroyed. So they did take those docks. They're sitting in Staten Island. There are pilings available at Dyckman Marina that could be repurposed. So as far as like the hard infrastructure, that can all exist, but you need to get the permitting to drive those pilings, and that piece, I think, is where you ask what might be the impediments. That's where it might be. What HRCS has done is taken the first step of starting to apply for moorings where our boats would sit when we're not using them. But we really need EDC to take the lead on the dock part.
Okay.
And Chair Edwards? Thank you.
Yes, Victor, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Good evening, all. Good evening, Robert. Victor Edwards here.
Hey.
Glad you could join them and give us this really important information. So I had a few questions and comments. One, how can we be most helpful to moving this along for you? Would it be
Well-
letters or reaching out to elected officials? How can we help?
Well, we talked about, Victor, when we saw you in December, maybe doing a resolution.
Okay.
And, we talked about whether that would be with Harlem Rocket or separately. I mean, I think the resolution is is certainly in your scope of what you do, all, with some regularity. I think that would help. I want to, again, I am going to stay on this, but having that, I think, would be helpful.
Okay. Secondly, do you think the moorings will be in this for the spring, summer season?
I don't. I mean, you get on the phone. We had a call with Army Corps and we had a call with Coast Guard, and we haven't had a call with DEC yet. And there are
Okay.
ways. These are not hard things. The moorings. There are ways for it to happen, but it seems like it may take longer than that, unless really EDC and Dock NYC really push it along. But that's my sense.
Okay. So hopefully our resolution can include something along those lines to push this forward for you. We definitely will do that. The other thing, we have education committee on the board that's in touch, and myself as well, in touch with a lot of youth organizations. I mean, right there in the public housing development, we have after-school centers there. We have on City College campus, we have Math, Science, and Engineering High School.
Yeah.
And then we have Boys and Girls Club further uptown. So we do have a, a number of young people facilities that could be tapped into, take advantage of this. I definitely
Yeah.
would like to see them do that. So we're here to help, we're here to listen, and we will put together a resolution. And I'll
Great.
also speak to the borough president as well. I have his ear once a month, so maybe during that time I can, push this forward as a
That,
great thing for the community.
that would be great. We've had a lot of borough president, support in the past, with when
Mhm.
borough president Brewer and so I appreciate that. And I think, listen, if we know we can get some boats up there and work with, like work it out with Harlem Rocket, even if we don't have the moorings yet, we'll reach out and say, tell us where you want us to, go talk to some kids, and we'd love to bring them out. I think it'll be a ways away before we can get another school in the program or something like that until we really have everything solid, of course. But we're
Okay,
hoping to have boats up there, and you see our sails and getting young people out on it this summer. And
that would be great. That would be great. All right, look forward to that. We'll work on a resolution to move this forward.
great. And we had emailed some language earlier. I can resurface that and I can send it to you, and we'd really appreciate that.
Okay, yeah, send that. I'll share it with the committee and we can go forward from there.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. That was great.
Thank you, Robert. And Victor, you asked my questions, so I don't need to ask them.
Okay.
Well, thank you for making the time for me again, and I apologize for the rough beginning, and I apologize for not being there in person, but I hope to see you at future meetings in person and on the water. I really do.
No, no problem at all. Thank you for taking the time.
All right. Great.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, we now have quorum. There are 4 of us out of 6 members, so we now have quorum. We can now adopt the minutes and the agenda and the minutes. So, have the bonus motion. Is someone move a motion to adopt the agenda, please? We need a move. So you moved the motion, so Cocktail moves the motion. Someone second? Thank you, Andrea. All right, let's take a minute and look at the minutes. Gregory, I just want to let you know that if you're not in person, you're not counted. Okay, I see you there. Okay? Because all members of the committee have to be present.
Okay. I got it. I got in late from work, but all right, got you.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. 2 more minutes. Okay. All right. But I'll just. T. Okay, do we have any corrections? If there are no corrections, can someone move a motion to accept the minutes? Oh,
I think one of the sentence
mhm.
at the end, five C. Michael is professor in this party at Columbia University to discuss what this program could look like.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, it just says,
Could look like. Thank you.
thank you for catching that. Oh. Is there a motion to move to adopt the minutes with any necessary corrections? There a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
So, Michael, I hand it over to you now.
Okay, so. Just the subcommittee reports, you know, we have obviously talked about in past meetings. Reestablishing an ad hoc West Harlem Piers subcommittee. To just be able to monitor the ongoing challenges. Regarding the West Harlem Piers. You know, as far as we know, we haven't made any updates or progress in terms of establishing an ad hoc committee. But judging from last month's meeting, it did seem like there was a lot of interest in doing so. And if folks have thoughts on what they would like that ad hoc committee to look like in terms of just sort of what it takes to look at, or some of the, you know, some of the issues that it wants to sort of advocate on behalf of. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on potentially bringing this back.
Well, based on what we just heard in the presentation, it seems like that committee would have an integral part in asking questions, getting information and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So who would like to be on that committee so that we formalize? Let's first of all start with the committee members and then we move on.
Are the people mentioned who came forward at the last meeting still interested? Or
Yeah, Wayman, you were at the last.
But they're not in our committee.
Because a public member, you can vote.
Yes, absolutely, but it's important that we also have committee members. Yes, in the committee. Okay, all right, which will probably you chair. So you'll probably then be the chair. Yeah, that's why.
Father was told me to find it here.
The chair.
For this adult subcommittee, how often should we meet in person?
How often they should meet in person? You know, we meet once a month. I think the strategic planning task force also meets once a month.
I think I already know.
Is that true?
I
Really?
think so. I could be wrong.
Okay,
I thought it was
okay.
every-
It would really be up to,
Strategic planning, I thought was every other month.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it would also be up to whoever chairs the committee, I think, or we can talk to,
Seems like. Well, like,
yeah.
Okay, let's start, let's finish with the West Harlem Piers.
Yeah, West Harlem.
Would you like to be a member of the West Harlem Piers Committee?
yeah, but not sure.
No, we already have it.
Yeah.
All right, your name down. So. And you also volunteer, yes, can you give us your name, please?
Wayman Whiting.
Yeah, the public member. Oh,
He was at last month's meeting too.
yeah. That's-
Since I'm gonna be chair.
Yeah.
I get the names and contacts.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Everyone. Yeah, okay, yes, thank you.
Spell your name for me, please.
Waymon. Whiting, WHITING.
Thank you.
So we can bring this up at the next executive committee to see if we can get folks involved in other committees as well who would want to monitor the West Harlem Piers, and that, I think that's a good idea. Or you want it to just be folks in economic development? Okay.
We already have people from outside who want to join. It's in your.
Okay,
It's in
yeah.
your minutes.
Does the Parks Committee, which I happen to be on,
Yeah.
have a place with this then?
That's what I was thinking too, I mean,
I'm on that committee.
right, I mean, we could raise it with them, and I don't know, whatever you think is best, Charles.
Okay. All right, listen, it's whatever you all want to do.
Excuse me?
It's whatever you all want to do.
I'm just thinking, if since I'm already on that committee,
Okay,
I could raise issues, ask questions.
the synergy between,
I think so.
okay,
Yeah.
Seems to
Alright.
me.
all right,
Which one?
so
Parks. Oh, I'm on that committee.
we have, based on your minutes, what happened last month. We have Lena Hall, who also wants to be in that committee. Of course, women and whiter, and of course, you and Chin and Ira. Also, what is?
So everyone other than me is a public member, is that right?
He's the public member. Layla is also, she also wants to apply to be a public member. She's online. She was on, oh, yes.
She's online.
She's online. She's online. UN is the CEO of Han One Stop, and she also does the business thing as well. So she said she indicated interest in participating. Okay. All right, so you all decide your terms of engagement and what you want to do.
Thanks for that. We start funding every couple months.
Which one?
No, I mean, we should.
For this newly created,
Yes.
that's up to you as well, I mean, I think, yeah,
Because we already in March, April, May.
right. Yeah,
That's up to you all. And if you don't wanna be in the summertime, that's up to you all too. Okay. All right.
yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, West Harlem Piers obviously very important in the summer, so something to think about, yeah.
Can you, yes.
Yeah.
So, the strategic planning,
Yeah, Greg Rito, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm on a call. Sorry, I was trying to find a meeting.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you had a chance to attend the last strategic planning, task force, meeting, if you had an update for us or anything like that.
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time.
I'm not sure if you had the chance to attend the strategic planning task force, meeting.
Yes, I attended.
Okay, do you want to give us an update on the committee? on the subcommittee?
Yeah, I'm actually about to be there now, so if you just want to skip past that, and then when I get there, I can do that. I'm gonna be there shortly. I'm driving.
Oh, you're gonna be there for, oh, great, okay, sure, okay, we can circle back, unless anyone else attended the strategic planning task force that is online or in person? Okay. Well, great, looking forward to hearing about it. We just have some old business, to talk about. You know, I already spoke a little bit about the Columbia University Business Students Internship with, CB9 Small Businesses. You know, we're obviously going through the law school right now. If folks have any other, you know, not just Columbia, other programs that they think, Community Board 9 could collaborate with to help the small businesses in our district, please let us know. You know, we talked about City College about a month ago. Could be a useful program to get in touch with. You know, obviously, each of these programs probably do slightly different things in terms of services they offer small businesses, so any help is helpful.
I have a clarifying question. Columbia University Business Students Internship. Is that the same as the Columbia Students Law School, legal clinic?
No, so different things, so that the business, the like item 6A is what we talked about a couple of months ago, which was to, per the community benefits agreement, create a program with Columbia Business School where business school students can help small businesses. We did reach out to them, had some trickiness getting in touch with the business school. And so the law school is very open to, like I said earlier, they're sort of willing to work with us and put this program in place. So, but, you know, if folks are able to get in contact with any other like programs that they think could be helpful with small businesses in the district, we'd love to add that on to what we're currently putting in place with the law school.
So my question is, are we going to jettison this business students internship?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely old business.
So we're not doing that anymore, right? I
You
would,
know, never say never, but I think for now, yeah, I think we're gonna go forward with the law school. The law school, yeah.
I want to know that so that I can take it off the, that's why I put it on the agenda so we can discuss it.
Yeah.
The work site with the ladies of Hope Ministries, and then we also talked about that. They are putting things in place that hopefully would make it possible to have this type of relationship with them. It's not yet something that is doable right now, but they are putting things in place. You know, because to be a work site, one of the things that we would want them to do is to be the one that's responsible for paying their people. You know, just like there's some programs that I know a particular program where they send out seniors to learn different things at an establishment that's their work site, and it's an organization that pays the seniors to learn. And the individual can be with that company for 4 years. And the work site can employ that trainee afterwards if they feel that they want to work with them. So I think that's the type of setup that will be good for this community. Because not everyone has the ability, financial wherewithal to just hire people like that. If they did, you know, they would need the help. So That's what I'm, going to propose to them as they're putting things in place.
Is there any other old business that anyone wanted to bring up?
So our business conference,
That's right. Also spoke to, folks at the law school about this. I think a couple of things, which is, there are a lot of city, like, folks that we could reach out to help out with the content of the small business conference or symposium. There are also faculty, like the professor at the clinic, other sort of faculty at Columbia and at City College, or other organizations, I think, in our district that could provide some really essential training or any other kind of help throughout what we're picturing could be a like day-long conference, sometime late summer or in the fall or whenever folks are thinking would be a good time to do it. This is still obviously something we're trying to think through, and there's a lot of different ideas. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, should we not do it around our community needs first?
Yep.
Instead of what, and then, yes. By, Columbia,
so let me just go back for the new people.
You don't see I'm trying to park? Go into the next lane. You don't see I'm trying to park, you stupid ass?
So last year we organized a business conference. Actually, we started planning in 2024, right? And then eventually it happened 2025. Initially, people were like, we can't do this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Can't do it. But we plodded along and we were able to identify some of the needs that were in the community and then match them with people in the community who could fill those needs. So we had the business conference, the first one at Forum, which went very well. So we want to build upon it. As a matter of fact, UMass was involved. One of the things that we wanted to do, or that we did, or wanted to do, was to have UMass do a application walkthrough.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Maureen wasn't able to do that, but that was one of the things that we wanted community, so that they would be familiar with what UMass really wants,
Yeah, that's something that I was gonna let you guys talk, but in new business, I was gonna present that I'm more than happy to present or
Excellent.
attend any event or any workshop that you guys are.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So, I want to say this so that to put our minds at ease. I have single-handedly organized an international conference. Single-handed. That was attended by about 100 people. And when they came, they said, Joyce, I want to see your staff. They are exemplary. So you're looking at them. I wasn't proud to say it was just circumstances that had, led to that. People that I was supposed to do what they dropped out. But I said, I'm gonna do this. And I only had 2 hours of sleep for 6 months putting it together. So I say this not to boast, but just to say that we're in good hands. We can do it. We've done it before. Now we wanna build on what we did last year. Okay? As she said, we wanna identify what the needs are in the community. We have all this business groups, resources, let me say, we have all these resources in the community. And sometimes when there are a lot of resources, many people don't even know what's in the community. They don't know the resources that are there. They don't even know that this person can actually help them with their problem. So our job is to connect the problem with the resources that will help to solve the problems. You know, so we may want to do a survey to find out from people what their needs are. Right? Once we know the problem, they say, once you know the problem, it's 90% solved. And when we know their needs, then we know the organization that can help. And we invite them to, we had people who gave workshops. We had people who just lectured, you know, they made a presentation. We had city agencies that came, such as the Department of Workers' Protection, and they changed their name, they used to be DCLA.
Bureau of Consumer and Worker Protection.
Yes, that's it, you know. So we had all these various city agencies as well as private companies who were able to help. We had people who came in and talked about how to buy a house. You know? So many things. So that's why I'm saying that perhaps we should try to identify what the needs are in the community. And then we have all these resources. All we have to do is just go to the office. And then also remember who we go to when we need help. You know, and we start contact them. And then we'll be able to put together a program. Very simple. Yes, ma'am.
I think this is somewhat related, but I know about the effort being done by Indivisible Harlem to educate businesses in the community that had to deal with ICE issues. And I know there was I knew about it beforehand through the MHCC, small business thing that we did. But I know there was a message sent out to the community, you know, to the community board members about this opportunity. Do we know it? And because it means people have to physically go to the different businesses and introduce them and give them their paraphernalia that they've developed. Do we know if anyone has volunteered to participate?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'm
Yeah.
not physically able to go back and forth to stores, but I mean, at least I think it could be if we have a representation at a small business forum, but
That would.
I think that the challenge is getting people who will volunteer to do the legwork.
Right.
Because it means physically going and introducing and all that.
Yeah, and Joyce, do you, for the 2024 small business conference, do you remember, do you remember if you also did like a survey of some kind, or if you, like how you decided what you wanted the context of the conference to be? So I think you're totally right. I think obviously should find a way to.
So
So,
cheated because I know the community, I know what they need, because I work with small businesses. So we do a shortcut. So we just focus on some of the things that I knew, you know, and then I matched them with the different companies and agencies that could speak to those needs. You know, that's why I said this will be a build up on what we did in 2025.
Oh, from 2025. Okay, awesome. Okay.
So we have time now, we didn't have that much time. So just to make sure that we can, to show that we can do this. But now we have the time, so we can do surveys, you know, somehow, yes.
We have the time because we're doing it after the summer or? Okay.
Yes, but not right now. No, we can't do it now. It's too, time is too short. To really do something good, you know, great. We can't do that in May now. Do you think you wanna do that in May? Exactly, time is too short, because we need to. We wanna do it well. And in terms of location, we were able to have, one of our members, John Martin Green, speak to WHTC, apply for the Faith Fees Forum. One of the things that we had tried to do was to have, yes, we actually did, achieve that. Plenary sessions, so different things were going on in different rooms at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah, they were able to do that. So I think similar things will happen. Different workshops will be going on at the same time, depending on what people want to learn about, what their needs are. We can have a legal clinic, where, we'll tell people this will be happening. You'll be able to find out what is the best legal structure for you, how to read a contract, or whatever it is that we're offering on the legal clinic. Yeah, so different things, to put it together. So we need time to talk amongst ourselves, figure it out, and make it happen. Gregory, nice to meet you in person.
You meant.
I'm sorry, I'm getting old.
So season.
Thank you. All right, so thank you for coming to join us. And you have the floor to talk to us about the strategic plan.
Yes, so the strategic plan meeting pretty much. We were just going over, a large portion of that conversation was. Discussing a set amount of funds that's given to the district in terms of, different opportunities for different organizations to gain monetarily through, uh, organizations, so a large portion of the funds that are doled out, like amongst the community, are to primarily to like arts and music. And they receive a large portion of that, so a large part of the conversation was trying to figure out ways for us to, one, make more, provide more knowledge to people in the district as to these funds that are available. So we, kind of brainstorming some different ideas about what that could look like in terms of who could receive the money and again, provide access because like seniors should be able to get a portion of this and different, the different demographics within the community board. So that was pretty much a large portion of the conversation and what we were having brainstorming the kind of like just getting a grasp of it. I think that's pretty much all I got for right now. So I think moving forward, so we're definitely gonna change or try to change at least the way that the funds are being dispersed throughout the community board. So we're just focusing on
Just
So,
to clarify, you're talking about funds from the Harlem
what's,
development, is that? what-
yes, sorry.
Just want to be.
Yes.
I know of one arts organization that did receive.
So there's obviously a large portion of the grants are again given out to organizations within the creative arts. And they receive a large portion of it, and again, we're just trying to just figure out how can we diversify that and make it equivalent to everyone else, and also try to focus on again like different small businesses like well. So any questions?
so they want to see how small businesses can, get some of the grant money? Is it?
Well, yes, so again, right now, because it seems that. The information isn't really being given out to, I guess. The community at large isn't really receiving the information, it's kind of like if you know, you know. And they're trying to break away from that, so a piece of that conversation was trying to work on. Outside of Columbia University, obviously, because Columbia was a large place for in terms of information to kind of be shared. Other smaller organizations that work on marketing to kind of share that information to everyone else, whether that be going into schools and letting students know like if these funds are available, etc. So that's kind of like the idea right now that I guess we're working towards like moving forward. And yeah, that was pretty much a.
Do you have the information regarding like where the funds get, like, that breaks down where all the
Not
funds get
yet, but the
distributed?
next meeting, I can for sure have that. We
Okay.
haven't had the meeting, obviously, that's gonna be coming up, but I'll
Yeah.
get all of that information, and then when I come back, I'll share that with you.
That's great, yeah.
Because,
WHTC actually makes that information public. They, if you go on their website.
But look, even, we're asking, you know, so
I know.
that's on me, I'll make sure I'll get that.
Yeah. It's on their website. They break down the amount per category.
Yeah.
You know, and they even have the names of the organization and how much each organization was given. So it's on their website on the grants.
In state then, and this has to be verified, and MHCC, the one that has been through, she has got grants. And I think the grant that they have is related to small business to help fund that small business forum that we had.
Yeah, so,
25.
uh,
I think that was the basis.
MH
Support small businesses.
MHCC's presentation last
Yeah,
month was like regarding their social enterprise project. That was, they got a
yes,
WHCC grant for that.
received
Yeah,
the grant,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
from the West Palm Development.
exactly, yeah.
The thing I'm not clear about is, I don't think West Harlem Development Corporation makes grants to for-profit organizations. Like small businesses or for-profits. But with for-profits, they would have to get loans. Social enterprise organization, that's a funny legal structure because it's a combination of a nonprofit and for-profit, you know. Some grants they'll be able to get, some they will not be able to get. So that's a interesting thing that they were able to get a grant from WHDC. So I don't think WHDC would be able to give small businesses grants.
MHCC is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
organization.
So it's a project to, yes, project to help businesses that would work for profit,
I know what
right?
you're saying.
So it's, you know, there's no problem like receiving the grant for MHCC. Obviously, the small businesses themselves aren't getting
Right. I
direct
understand.
WHTC funding, yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
because it depends on the mission.
Right.
Of the corporation. Yeah, I mean, I could be a 501(c)(3) that sources for funds to help small business. You know. Because that's my legal structure, you know, that's what my mission is. But she could be a 501(c)(3) that sources for funds solely for nonprofit organizations. In which case, for-profits would not be able to apply. Okay, all right, thank you so much for the information you brought back from strategic planning. What were we trying to achieve from strategic planning? The information that we wanted for the economic development.
I mean, I think just trying to figure out what was going on with the strategic planning task force, I think. Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think what we talked about last month was that it seems like the strategic planning task force is sort of focusing a bit of their attention on WHDC and how they handle funds. I think in the past, the strategic planning task force has looked a lot at Columbia and whether or not they're sort of providing WHDC with the funds and sort of issues like that. So I'm not sure if there was anything specific we were trying to hear from the strategic planning task force. Yeah.
I remember what it was, yeah. We were trying to, because Columbia is supposed to have money to assist small businesses. And I think that was why we were trying to find out, if they could do the internship. You know, the Columbia Business School could do the internship.
Also space, right? Wasn't that another issue? But then to provide space.
Yes, that's been going on. They have been providing space through WHDC. So all one has to do now is just to go on WHDC website and apply for the space. Yeah, and they take it out of the money that's allocated for that.
These places are money, money lost as well.
Right. Anything else? Any questions?
I have new business.
Yeah.
My name is Joel Brady. I introduced myself earlier, from the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone. We are a local, CDFI, is a community development financial institution. What we do is, we're a mission-led lender. Right, we have programs, small businesses, we have a few programs that I want to mention. Maybe, we can set up a future date where I can present them to you. We lend from $50,000 to 10 million here in Upper Manhattan, and 2 million outside of Upper Manhattan. We lend to small businesses. We have a hybrid loan program that is at 3% at maximum $50,000. With a 4th-year forgivable grant. So we make on-time payments for 3 years. That 4th year is free. So the only thing that we ask of that business for that hybrid loan program is that we don't do startups. So it has to be an existing business that has a track record of at least 2 years. And that's been filing taxes for those 2 years. We also, to track our impact in our impact zone, which is Upper Manhattan, we need a brick and mortar store. So we have to have an address here in Upper Manhattan. So we also have other programs like our pre-development. So we're doing pre-development loans for developers that are developing in Upper Manhattan, construction loans. We also have an ACDBE program. This ACDBE program is for businesses who are certified with the Port Authority, that are MWB certified with the Port Authority, and
What
want
is MWB certified?
MWB is Minority Women and Minority Women and Black Owned Enterprises.
Okay.
And these MWBs can compete for a loan to get a concession at JFK or the law. They have to go through a Port Authority, get certified, and compete for this loan. So we have that program. That's one of our special initiatives right now. Mentioned our hybrid loan program, our construction loan, and we also have our regular term loans for expanding businesses. That can go up to $500,000 outside of Upper Manhattan and up to 2 million within. So we have several programs. Just to let you know about CDFIs. CDFIs are mission-led, meaning we want to lend to businesses that historically have been overlooked. Right? So if you look at, if you go into a bank, you apply for a loan, they're going to be very traditional in their underwriting. CDFIs historically have looked, the employees within CDFIs are within the community. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm from the community. That's why I know the businesses, right? So they're experts in navigating the landscape, as opposed to somebody like Chase that has national presence. Our footprint is here, so we know the landscape. We know what a bodega is, right? We know what a laundromat or a hair salon or a braiding place is. So that's historically what CDFIs do. And CDFIs get their funding from CRA motivated banks. So the Community Reinvestment Act, our year 77, made it so that if you have a bank present in your neighborhood, you have to reinvest into your neighborhood. And one of the ways they reinvest into our neighborhoods is through CDFIs. So we're here to serve, right? We want to lend to our community. We're not for profit, so we want to lend to our community and abroad. I'm happy to, if you guys do a resource fair, I'm happy to be on it. But also recommend businesses to us. We have we know their businesses, we understand them. And a lot of the times our businesses struggle because they're specifically on loan preparation. So, we take that into consideration. We do site visits. We work with businesses to make sure that their financials are in order. So please recommend any business that you need funding. A big thing in our neighborhoods are access to capital, and UMass is one of those things that helps solve that gap, so.
Question.
No,
Okay, yes, I'm asking other questions.
Thank you for that. How do businesses in the community learn about access to what you offer?
I mean, it's like this, so on forums like this, through the Chamber of Commerce's, at least in CB12, I know there's a Washington Heights Chamber of Commerce, I know the greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, community-based organizations, that promote CB5s. There's a variety of ways, there's so many of us, but usually we're not as, big in numbers as in terms of banks. We have a smaller presence in terms of like marketing, so it's more difficult to get our names out there. But it's through forums like this, through chambers, through community-based organizations. So yeah.
This is sort of like push versus pull, that sort of situation.
Yeah, it's tough to get our names out there, and usually a CDFI is tied to a specific geographic location, not all the time, because there's national ones, but in terms of UMass, we're tied to New York City.
Another question?
Yeah.
You mentioned the issue with the Port Authority and getting places in the airports, and you mentioned what I would say are minority communities. Is there pushback now because of the DEI BS, excuse my coarseness, but you know what I'm talking about.
we've been hearing that a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've just been hearing that a lot. Good point, yeah.
I mean, is that been an issue?
So if you notice my verbiage, I said historically overlooked, right? So we wanna, specifically CDFIs are, they're certified through the Treasury on a US level. So we want to avoid like saying, hey,
Right.
black and brown, on a state level, we can say MWBE certified, which is true, right? The state does allow certification, MWBE, but we wanna, specifically the ACDBE program are historically disadvantaged business.
So it's like colleges having affinity groups.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right, exactly.
But from the top, what's the name of it?
Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone.
My question was which languages the services that you provide, which community you can,
All communities,
how you speak it? Do you have
I
language
speak, well,
French?
not necessarily, no.
We have a lot of actually in this community, Mali, Senegal, they run small businesses.
And I'll be happy to have an intermediary like you to help translate. I don't speak French. I do speak Spanish. I speak English, obviously, but if somebody can translate and have some sort of business acumen to help translate that to them, I don't mind. If you know of any businesses that need funding and that are prepared for funding. Yeah.
2 years brick and mortar.
Right, 2 years brick and mortar.
For the pre-development fund, do they have to be brick and mortar as well?
So pre-development is usually government backed by HPD.
Okay.
They usually are low income housing, applying for LIHTC, which is like low income tax credits. Or historical tax credits through HPD, and they're usually government backed. So it's a developer that's developing a plot of land that has HPD backing. We can do pre-development for them.
Okay. And what are like the typical terms on your loans?
So depends on the program, but we do a max of 7 years on a regular term loan, and we based our rates on SOFR. So depending on what the rate is, we probably have a ceiling of like 9 or 10 max.
Yeah.
Let me have contact.
I do. I don't have. I was working remote, so I don't have my business cards today. So I can say it for the record. It's J Abreu. So it's JABREU
You right.
Oh, I'll write it, yeah. JABREU@umes.org. So that's JABREU@umes.org.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I think we'd love to, I mean, if you'd love to present.
Oh, yeah.
In more detail.
I'll get your
That'd be great.
contact
Yeah,
afterwards and, you know, we can set up a date in the future.
Totally.
Yeah.
Is it Joel? or-
Joel, you can call
Joel.
Joel, Jay, whatever you
I
want.
want to make sure I have the correct name. Alright. All right. Thank you, everybody. We've covered everything.
Yeah.
All right. In the absence of any other business, can someone move a motion to adjourn the meeting? You, Jesse? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming out this cold, windy, west day.
Thank you, everyone online. Thank you, Marita. Thank you, Chair Edward.